Now, seeking employment after being convicted is never an easy task, as you can imagine it, with only 17% of people on average getting employment within a year of being released. So it begs the question as to how this can be changed and whether it actually should be. What can we do to actually improve employment rates of former convicts? And actually, where do you draw the line? Who do you employ when they come out? Which crimes are worthy of re-employment? So for companies like the high street store shoe repair and locksmith firm Timpson, there's nothing charitable about employing former prisoners, claiming that they can be the most commercially minded people that you'll ever meet. Now, the company also runs training academies from within prison premises, focusing on obtaining vocational skills to better prepare ex-offenders for employment upon release. Well, coming up, we'll be speaking to the founder himself of Timpson, Sir John Timpson, but I'm joined in the studio by former convict and current heating engineer Winston Davis. I hope you don't mind, former convict. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? I didn't write that, somebody else did.
Look, it's just it's a label, isn't it? You know, it's a stigma you walk out with, and you'll carry it for the rest of your life. But for me, it's what do you then do with that? What do you do after that? You say former. What happens when you leave those gates? What is your desire to change and to prove to people that you have changed and prove to people that you're worth giving a chance to?
So if you take us back then to your kind of story, because I think people will be watching thinking, well, you seem very smart and very, I wasn't going to say anything else, but you seem like a very well-to-do young man. How would somebody like you end up in prison, and then how do you sort of rebuild your life when you come out?
Yeah, I mean, so I had a challenging upbringing, childhood, and I was doing my education, went to university, got a graduate training scheme, ultimately lost my job, and for whatever reason ended up driving a car full of skunk down the road. And I got stopped and sent to prison, duly sent to prison, rightly sent to prison. And that's the thing, like young people, we know there's a study done in 2019 by Bangor University around adverse childhood experiences, and that could be seeing a parent doing drugs or alcohol or violence in a home or sexual abuse. And they basically found that if you have 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, you're 20 times more likely to end up in prison. So we know that the root of people going on to commit crime and to be leading those kind of lives starts early in their life. So that's where it comes from. And really, if we're going to be trying to challenge it and change it, we've got to go back to helping people with their mental health and dealing with the issues which have still carried with them to the point they end up in prison.
So you ended up in prison. How long were you in there for?
I got a 3-year sentence, served just under a year and a half. And while I was in an open prison, did a training course for gas engineering. Run with it. When I got released, I actually was trying to get a job doing what I used to do in account management and IT. Couldn't get a job because of it. So I then offered to work for free. Someone's working a building site, and I said, I'll come down and work for free just to get experience. Work for free for a month, and after 5 months following that, they would pay me £30 a day, and I got qualified. And then that's it. I just took the opportunity and ran with it. Now,
you were in for a year and a half, but what about prisoners who've been in there for a long time? So somebody who's been there for like 15 years, what is there? Because you've obviously experienced the service, you've seen what's there. What is there in the prisons to enable people to then acclimatise to life outside it?
Yeah, so it goes back to what I said, you've got to look at the mental health and the therapy side of it, because these people would have experienced a lot of trauma whilst in there and before and caused trauma. So they need to be addressed in that. Then it's training and education, so they're developing skills that they can actually use in the real life and when they come out. And then it's that reintegration back into society, slowly reintegrating. At the moment, there's no mandatory period where people are going to open conditions.
So what do you mean by that then? So they're in prison, they just get released?
Yeah.
So is there a graduating step as you leave the prison?
There should be. And the prison service will say that there is, but there are numbers of cases that I've been brought to my attention of people that are serving 7, 10, 12 years behind the door, no reintegration to open prisons or slowly back in the community, and literally getting let out. That scares me.
Even you who've been inside the
Yeah, if you lock somebody up 23 hours a day for 3, 4, 5 years, don't give them any training, treat them like an animal, how are they going to behave? And that's why our reoffending rates are so high here.
Partly because there's nothing for them to go to, I presume.
Yeah.
And they have no...
It's a reoffending cycle.
But you got lucky, you got some training whilst you were in prison, and then when you came out, you were able to use that. How difficult was it to get another job, though? Because you said you tried to get back into what you were in, but your conviction made it, on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult?
Yeah, there was no chance of me going back into what I did before.
Yeah.
So therefore, when I said, right, well, I've got this qualification that I've taken on, when I offered to work for free, you know, working on the council contracts, installing systems, when I've offered that and they've said, fair enough, and I've gone down and I've worked really hard, like, you know, people having lunch breaks and I'm still working, I really wanted it. And after a month, the guy was like, you're working too hard, I can't not pay you. So then I've proved, go back to that thing about proving your worth. When you get released, how can you prove to people in society, in business, in the world, that you're committed to changing, you're committed to bettering your life and to contributing back to society?
Perhaps that's why Sir John Timpson said that ex-offenders are some of the hardest working people that he knows. We'll stay right there because I'm going to have a chat with the man himself. Chairman and owner of Timpson, Sir John Timpson, joins me now. Sir John, thank you so much for joining us. Now, I know you understand that you've invested in training academies. What was your motivation for doing that?
It all happened by chance that my son, who runs a business these days, happened to go to one prison, Thorncross, near Warrington, nearly 20 years ago, for a function that was being held there. He was taken on a tour of the prison by one of the inmates. He was very impressed with him, a guy called Matt. So he said, well, when you get out, get in touch, I'll give you a job. And that was the first one. That's how we started. And his mother said, well, if you can employ one, you can employ 10. So he set off doing that. And over the last 20 years, we've learned an awful lot about both how to do it and the benefits that not just come to the people who join us and we get a job to them, but also to us as well. That was how it happened. The motivation was twofold, really. One is that of people leaving prison, 60% of people leaving prison reoffend within the next 2 years, but that percentage drops to under 10% if they've got a job. So the job is so important, and you can understand that. And the other motivation was simply the fact that no one was actively looking to employ people from prison. So we thought, well, if we do that, there's lots of talented people there, so why don't we step in and give it a go? So that's what the motivation was from the start. And now it's mainly because it works so well for us. But also, I think the fact that now we're getting other people to follow our example, and we've advising other businesses. And we have, I think, helped to change attitudes. And I mean, all the time we're looking for people like Winston who want to make stuff. I mean, you've got just the right character, just the right person, just the sort of person we're looking for. So now we've got a situation where we've got about 500 people working for us at the moment who joined us straight from prison. That's about 13% of our workforce. Many have been with us for 10, 15 years and have gone right up the scale. They all join us on the same terms as everyone else. They get the same sort of contract, they get the same sort of training. But as Winston was pointing out, there is the need, particularly at the start, of giving a little bit extra help, maybe with housing, maybe a loan. And also, actually, it's very helpful if they're working alongside somebody who supports them in the shop they're working in. And we've just been very lucky like that. We've got colleagues who've done an amazing job in helping people turn their life around. And they're a big part of our success.
Would you always say that then, because you said there's a lot of things you learnt on the way, what would you say is the main thing that you learned, which is a surprise to you that you didn't really think that would be the case when you started doing this?
I think, me personally, I was a bit sceptical to start with. It was much more my son's idea than mine. I was worried as to how our other colleagues would react. I would have been completely wrong. They've They've taken a great pride in what they've done. I think it's very important. And then obviously I was slightly worried as to what our customers would think. But it's probably the most mentioned thing about us by customers when they say, well, they're the business that give people a second chance, and we think that's great. So there were two things that I was wrong about. But we've also learned that we need to, like we do with everyone else, we recruit on personality. We're looking to make sure that we've got people that we're not setting them up to fail. We're finding people who we know will make a success of their job, and it makes a great happen. It's something I didn't know about when we started. But one thing that works extremely well as having workshops inside some prisons, we also have a lot of people who can be released on temporary license on a day release while they're still serving the last bit of their sentence. So they're already working in our shops during the day, and some got trained so well and done so well, they're already managing one of our shops before they've left prison.
Well, and very briefly, because I'm slightly running out of time, but I wanted to ask you, in your view, is there always a possibility for rehabilitation when it comes to former convicts?
Is there always the possibility?
Always, in your view, the possibility of rehabilitation when it comes to former convicts?
It's not going to work for everybody. I mean, we made the mistake when we started that some people actually probably in their character is just not suited to it. I mean, frankly, they're probably too naughty they've got to fit into our workplace. We've got to have a mind to the rest of the colleagues who work for us. We can't make a special case. They've got to, in the end, to be the sort of colleagues that we want to look after our customers. So it's not right for everyone, and that's a very important part of our judgment, to try and make sure that we, as I say, don't set anyone up to fail.
Well, listen, Sir John Timpson, thank you so much for joining me. It's really good to talk to you. That is Sir John Timpson. He's the chairman and owner of Timpson's. Also joining me is Winston Davis. Winston, just a final word to you then. So what are you doing now with yourself now? We've got about a minute. Tell us what you've got up to.
So started a company, Avenue Heating, which is running people, employing people. We've opened a building company off the side of that, and when I'm not doing that, I'm a chairman of a charity, Southside Young Leaders Academy, and I ran for election in May, and 50 votes out.
What were you, Liberal Democrat?
Liberal Democrat, yeah, but 50. I know.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So
well, that's good. Really good to hear that. And so there is hope, isn't there? Really.
There is hope. Yeah, there is hope. You know, sometimes some people just need a chance. And like Sir John was saying, it's got to be a certain type of person, but that type of person sometimes just needs that opportunity.
Well, Winston, thank you so much for joining me. That is Winston Davis. That was, of course, Friday Focus.